For those who are connected through the Zoom, if there are any comments or questions you would like Colin to answer at the end, please put it onto the chat box. Progress on the meeting will be handled by Dr. Sampath. So I will hand over now to Sampath. He can continue with this event from here onwards. Sampath, you can now take over and go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, everybody, in the Zoom link as well as in the Facebook live stream. So we will be having today is our special day at FogSL. We are having our AGM at 11:30 in the morning, and before that we have this special event. Normally in other years we've done bird watchers conferences, we've done sometimes exhibitions, sometimes we've done a series of public lectures, but this year about 2 months ago, the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, probably the biggest institute dedicated to the study of birds in the world. Cornell Lab has hundreds of scientists working on different aspects, from taxonomy, population ecology, to popularizing ornithology, bird conservation, in a grander scale, located at the Cornell University in New York. It's very fitting. It's a Cornell Lab located at the Sapsucker Woods Road, Ithaca, New York. A great facility for ornithology. In Cornell Lab, there's a special place called Macaulay Library of Natural Sounds. Macaulay Library, it's more like in a way it's an archive that preserves sounds, natural sounds of the planet, from streams, waterfalls, insects, birds, mammals, to anything that is natural. In the light that these things are disappearing fast, people might not know that so many streams, so many rivers, so many waterfalls had stopped flowing over the past 50, 60 years. Even in Colombo, basically none of the natural streams are flowing now in the metropolitan Colombo, and all these streams had a unique, its unique sound, and those sounds were extinct. So Macaulay Library of Natural Sounds, it's part of its projects actually preserve these sounds for the future generations. I myself, as a recordist for Macaulay, had been involved in doing some things. We've done recordings of the forest, just the forest at night, the recordings of, different insects in stereo recordings, just so that we capture that, because we don't know the next day it might be destroyed in the name of other state forest or a residual forest, whatever. One person or a few people can make decisions that are so detrimental to this planet, to the future generations, to the current generations, simply to get few votes. And that is happening in Sri Lanka in a grander scale, and that is happening across the globe. So to protect these in a unique way, Macaulay Library archive these, so that in the future the world would know that due to the greed and the ignorance and basically short-sightedness of politicians, they are supporters, they are voters, and then the common ignorance of the human race of this planet had destroyed so many natural resources, so many beautiful things, so many beautiful places, so many green areas, simply to make a few bucks out of it, few dollars out of it, few rupees out of it. So that's one aspect to Macaulay. Another aspect to this is to create a universal education and knowledge hub that spans across the globe, using the power of people. Our mother or our partner organization, BirdLife Internationals, also has that view where the power of people. Each individual is a birder. Each individual is a conservationist. Each individual is a source to generate knowledge that can drive this planet towards a better future, towards a greener future, towards a more resilient, more sustainable future. And we all has a responsibility as well as some form of a duty. So today's speaker, Cullen Hanks, is from Macaulay Library of Natural Sounds. And in the Macaulay Library, there's a special attention is given to bird sounds and bird calls, and also popularizing nature and environment and conservation through birds and other charismatic life forms. So, when the Cornell Lab and Macaulay Library approached us a few months ago to popularize their one of their key citizen science tools, we really embrace it. We ourselves been using their tools for over the past 10 years or so. So it's not a new news for us, but we were really thrilled as Fogesel to partner with Macaulay and Cornell Lab, the eBird and the Merlin tools, and to have this event. So Cullen Hanks is the project leader of this initiative, and he's a graduate from Texas, Austin, a birder, traveled across the most of the South and North Americas. Little I've seen his eBird maps in Europe, not so much in Asia and Africa, but a birder. So he has the birding in his heart, and he's a leader in popularizing birding and science of bird watching and science of birds into to unify this rally towards conservation and environment education. So we are very thankful for Cullen and his team to be here today. It's near midnight now at Chicago, and sorry, at New York. So we are looking forward for about 45 minutes of his presentation about eBird and Merlin and its users and its power for our audience. And Malaka done a small survey yesterday. I think I forwarded that to you, Cullen, of our registered audience. About 95% users use a smartphone, and about 50% has eBird. So that means there's room. Another 50% is there for you to convince. And also Merlin, and a new package is now ready for Sri Lanka. So Cullen will talk all about that. And then after we will have about half an hour question and answer session. I mean, to the audience, these guys are they are superheroes, but they are really humble. Feel free to ask any question. There's no stupid or dumb questions. They are all vital questions. And in the inclusiveness that we maintain in Fogesel, as well as in the Cornell Lab, when it comes to ornithology, it is not exclusive, like a privilege. It is inclusive. It's everybody's knowledge. It's everybody's resource. Birds are for everybody, and the science and art and beauty and the satisfaction that birds bring is for all. It's not for few exclusive community. So with that light, Cullen, thank you very much for coming today, and the audience is like the podium is for you, and let's start. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm super excited to participate in this meeting. Can y'all hear me all right?
Yeah, loud and clear. Great.
Excellent, excellent. Can I get some screen sharing?
Malaka. Okay.
No, it's here we go.
Yeah.
Let's see if this. Great. Can y'all see my presentation?
Yep. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to participate. As y'all mentioned, we are big supporters of the birding community. Birds themselves, not only is it a really fun and engaging way to learn about nature, they're really powerful kind of surrogates and indicators of what's going on in your environment, and they help tell that story, I think, quite well. And what I wanted to do today is just provide an overview of eBird and Merlin, the tools we provide for the birding community to record what you're seeing, to explore bird data and learn about birds, and specifically with Merlin Bird ID to identify birds in the field to help as a companion to your other bird guides. But a big part of why we're doing this is because the birding community is and are around the world very important advocates for the environment, and the data that they produce is critical data for environmental decision making, for research and conservation decision making. And so I really appreciate the work that Foxhole is doing in Sri Lanka, and we're really excited to support y'all if we can. And so I'm really excited to have this connection and to learn more about what's going on in Sri Lanka. My only regret here is that I can't do this in person because, as you pointed out, I have a kind of a weak point in all of Asia. I really need to get out there, and I would really love the opportunity to come visit someday. Hopefully that'll be a possibility. So, so to get started, I want to just tell you a little bit where I am and about something kind of fun that happened last night. I am actually down in Texas on the Gulf Coast. And the reason is that we're working remotely right now because of the quarantine, and my family's down in Texas. And so I came down here to be closer to my family and also to enjoy bird migration. This is a really exciting time for bird migration in North America. Birds are moving north from South America and Central America to breeding grounds throughout much of North America. And many of them, a huge percentage of them, are passing through Texas. And so I'm working remotely on the coast of Texas. And last night I went out to the beach. And it was kind of funny because when I went out to the beach, the tide came in, and it was an unusually high tide, and it flooded the road I went down on, that I went down to get to the beach. But then because all of the beach was covered by this tide, all of these shorebirds came and just started collecting there on the road. And it was a just really neat opportunity to see a bunch of these birds at once. And so, of course, I did an eBird checklist. And I used the eBird app, and you can see here, this is the flooded road. This right here is the road that I came down on and down to the beach. And I walked out to the beach and then back to the flooded area while the tide was up. And I did this checklist, and I counted how many of each bird I saw, and I recorded how long I counted, where I was, and the duration, so how much time it took me. It took me 37 minutes. I walked almost a kilometer, and I saw and I was able to identify 34 species. The cool thing is that as I'm doing this, people around the world are doing the same thing, observing the birds around them, and then just documenting, using the app to document what species they're seeing and uploading it. And what you can see here is a map of all of their observations. Every single point is an eBird checklist. The brighter the point, the more the checklists are. And you can see around the world how many people have reported bird observations. And this is an extremely important wealth of bird data for us all to use to understand what's going on with the environment and what's going on with birds around the world. People around the world have spent more than 60 million hours birding and recording the birds that they saw in the field around the world. The scale of what this community can produce is incredible. Over 660,000 people around the world have submitted data to the eBird database. Over 950 million observations from 10.8 million locations from every country in the world, documenting over 10,000 species, uploading over 25 million photos and 1 million sound recordings. And these have contributed to over 250 peer-reviewed publications in just the last 5 years. And so this is an incredible wealth of data. When you look at Sri Lanka, you can see that the amount of data and the participation is increasing. And especially in the last year, I noticed a sharp uptick in participation. Over 1,600 people have participated in the eBird project, uploading over 26,000 complete checklists, 43,000 photos, over 2,000 sound recordings, documenting over 400 species. So people are uploading all this data. Well, what do we do with this data? And I think that what I'm going to focus on is how you can access it as a birder to learn about the data and to kind of track your own observations. And as Sampath said, I really like questions. And so as I'm going through this, I'm kind of doing an overview. I would really love it if people think about questions you might have, because we can go back to any of these things and go in more in depth. And I'd love to hear your questions. Let's see here. So first off is that we compile the data in ways that you can share. This is one profile that I found from Sri Lanka. Aditya is a birder. I've never met him. I just saw his profile on eBird. But you can see this, and if you choose to publish your profile, you can see it, and anybody else can see how many species you observed in a region. So just in Sri Lanka, this eBirder has seen over 377 species, has over 465 complete checklists, has documented over 127 species with photos and 33 species with audio. He could go in, or we could go into any one of these regions and see his stats for that region or your own. And so one of the things that we do with the data is build tools that allow you to explore and see your own data. You can also go, each person has their own, you can also see his latest photos in Sri Lanka and his latest audio that he's uploaded, or explore his latest checklists. You also have your own private page where you can explore your data and see how many species you've seen in every region, every country, or every state or province, and kind of explore it that way. You can look to see how much you've seen this year versus last year. And this is something that would be under my eBird. And so this is something that these are kind of fun ways that they can compile all of your stats. And in a way, this is what I use, and what we provide is a tool to kind of manage your bird data as a birder, so you can keep track of when you've seen what and what year. For every species, I can look at, like, when did I see that species? I can look and see a list of all the different times I've seen that species, or how many species I've seen. Right now I'm in Galveston County. I know exactly what I've seen in Galveston County. And this is all under my eBird. In addition, we provide stats, and this is the the Zoom thing is getting in the way here. We provide all of this data under the Explore tab, which allows you to explore by species or by region. You can explore all the data by species or region. And as an example, you can just put in a species like Sri Lanka spur file, and get this one page that links to all the data on Sri Lanka spur file. We provide a curated set of photos that kind of demonstrate the examples of the female and the male, with some identification text and some curated sounds. But then we also provide a bar chart. So this is set for Sri Lanka. The Sri Lanka spur file is found year round. And then also links to more information like this map. If you click on click large map, what this does is takes you and you can explore this data. And you can see the red dots are dots that, the red locations are locations in Sri Lanka where it's been seen in the last 30 days. You can click on any of these dots, any of these points and see who's seen it there, what dates they've seen it, and even click on that link and see their checklist. And the point is that this data is accessible. The data that's uploaded to eBird is accessible online, and you can use these tools to explore that data and learn, especially if you want to learn about a particular species or you want to see like, where can I see this species? You can use this map and then click on it and then learn more about what other species you can find at that location. The other way, the other kind of major way to explore this data is by region, by location. And a region can be a country, it can be a province, or it can be a hotspot, like a park or a place where people have designated as a known place to go birding. And I'm not going to talk about all of these things other than to say, I really would hope that all of you go to the eBird website and explore this, because for Sri Lanka or for the any of the regions within Sri Lanka, you can go and see what were the recent visits, or you can look at the high count. So curlew sandpiper, Sampath, has the high count for curlew and sandpiper, 100,000 individuals, which makes me really want to go to this place, the Vankalai Bird Sanctuary, for February 2021. You can see the top hotspots that have the most species reported, or the top eBirders who have reported the most species in the country, or the most checklists. My favorite thing within the regions is the illustrated checklist. And this really shows the power of eBird data and what we can do as a community. This one data product shows for each species how abundant the species is over the course of the year, and as well as features media from that region. And so this is for Sri Lanka, and you can see that both, for example, the Sri Lanka whistling thrush and the Kashmir flycatcher are both relatively, they're species that are found relatively common in February and March, but during the summer, the Kashmir flycatcher is obviously a migratory species that's not found during the summer, or the Northern Hemisphere summer. You can also see media that has been recorded in the region. So in this case, Sri Lanka, and here's a sound recording by Sampath that he either uploaded or has in the Macaulay Library. Here's a sound recording by Greg Budney. And you can explore each of these links to more information. So for example, you could explore all of the photos for Kashmir flycatcher that have been documented for Sri Lanka just through this page. This is something, when I come to Sri Lanka, I'm going to come to this illustrated checklist and use this to study the birds beforehand and think about what are the possibilities for what species are going to be there during the week of the year that I'm going to be there, or the weeks of the year. And this is only possible because of the way people record eBird data. Again, this is the illustrated checklist. The other thing, of course, is the media. Birders are really good at taking pictures of birds. It's something that's really beautiful. And since we started allowing eBirders to upload media, eBirders have uploaded, I think somebody's has their microphone on. Over 25 people have uploaded over 25 million photos. And this is a really rich resource for learning about birds. Anytime I have a question about birds and the different plumages or the different kind of age variation, I oftentimes go and explore the media for that species and in a different region or whatever region that I'm looking at that bird.
Alan, can I interrupt? Malaka, can you ask everybody to mute their mics?
I'll tell Udita. Either it's Udita.
So,
yeah, go ahead.
So what? So I just the last thing I'll say about media is that we have some nice tools for filtering the media by location, by date. So if you want to look at photos from one time of the year, you can look at your own media. You can sort by best quality, or you can sort by what's most recently uploaded. There's quite a few ways to explore this material. And so this can actually eat up quite a bit of time. Just kind of sometimes when I have an interest in a species, I'll end up kind of looking at different photos and trying to understand how they vary. That can be quite fun. So this is the issue, right? So we have all these tools in eBird that allow you to explore the data, but they all have one fatal flaw. And that is that they don't work when you don't have a connection to the internet. And that's often the time when you really need this information, when you're out in the field and you're seeing a bird and you're trying to identify a bird, but you don't have a connection to the internet. And that's why we created Merlin Bird ID. Merlin Bird ID is our bird identification app. And there's some great tools out there for bird identification. There's some great field guides. Our app is basically a tool that leverages eBird data and the media and the expertise of the eBird community into an app to help supplement the other field guides and help people identify birds in the field. And it's free to anybody who wants to download it. One of the reasons that eBird data or that Merlin is so powerful and unique is that it uses eBird data and couples that with a species account for each species. And the eBird data really allows you to focus on the likely species for your specific location, not for your region or for all of Sri Lanka, but for where you are, and helping you focus on what you're most likely to be found at that location. The species accounts are kind of similar to what you might find in a field guide. We have species identification text. We have representative photos. We try and have representative photos of male, female, immature plumages. If there's geographic variation, we try and include that. We have a map, and then we have sounds, representative sounds for that species that you can listen to and visualize. They visualize the spectrogram so that you can actually try to remember that visual image as you're listening to it. Now each account is a global account that represents the entire range of the species. And so it's not going to have the in-depth information that a local field guide has about where, for example, it might be found in Sri Lanka or what specific habitats in Sri Lanka it's associated with, which is, but it is a powerful complement to a local field guide. One of the issues with Merlin is that the photos and the sounds do take up some memory. So we've created bird packs. And so we just released today a pack for Sri Lanka. They include all the regular species found in Sri Lanka. So globally, we have species accounts for over 7,500 species, and all of the sounds and the photos take up over 7 gigabytes, which is quite a bit to download. And so we break these up to regional packs, and we have one pack for Sri Lanka, which includes 361 species and uses about 410 megabytes. So you can download this once when you have good internet, and then when you're in the field, it'll still work. If there are rare species, you can download the other packs, say the India pack, or if there's the Australia pack. All of the areas that are in dark green have packs, and we are working on adding packs in Southeast Asia and in parts of Africa, and we're working on releasing packs soon for Colombia and Venezuela. So how does Merlin work? We basically have 3 tools within Merlin. We have what we call Bird ID, Photo ID, and Explore Birds. The way Bird ID works is that I think Uditha.
Yeah, I'll mute him. I told him.
Ekko oya mute කරන්න.
Yeah.
Take him out.
It sounds like there's maybe some construction. So the way Bird ID works is that we walk you through 5 different questions. Where did you see the bird? When did you see it? The size of the bird? What were the main colors? And what was the habitat, or what was the bird doing? And what we do is for the first 2 questions, we use eBird data. Where were you, the location and the date? That uses eBird data to filter down the list, because one of the challenges is when you open a field guide, especially for starting birders, it can be overwhelming to have so many species and so many options. And so what we try to do is filter down that list of possible species to the species that have been reported, are likely to be found where you are birding. And so the first 2 questions use eBird data, and then the next 3 questions, they use tags that are assigned for each species that are part of the bird pack. What size is the bird? What are the colors in the bird? And what is this bird doing? These questions are really helpful, especially if you have no idea what kind of bird it is, and you're not even sure what family to look in. But you can see these characteristics, and this can help filter the list and get you to some likely possible species that you can then read about and explore the species account. The second tool is Photo ID, which is quite amazing in the sense that it really does leverage all of the photos that people have uploaded, millions of photos that we've used with artificial intelligence to train a model to identify photos. And so this is just an example. When I was on that flooded road last night, I took this picture of a sandpiper, and sandpipers can be quite challenging. And so just as I was preparing this presentation, I took a picture of the screen of the sandpiper and uploaded it to Photo ID, and then put the location where I am and the date. Sorry, I accidentally And it suggested pectoral sandpiper, which I'm glad, because that's what I actually put on my checklist. So this is, if you're a photographer and you want help kind of identifying some of the birds in your photos, Photo ID is a very powerful tool that can help suggest species and help with your IDs. And then the third tool is Explore Birds, which in some ways might look like a traditional field guide in the sense that I'll provide lists of birds that can be organized, sorted in different ways. With Explore Birds, you can go in and you can, with Explore Birds, you can go in and you can assign a location and a date. Again, this is the eBird data that allows us to filter that data. And then you can sort by most likely, family most likely, or alphabetic if you prefer. When I come to Colombo, what I would probably do is is preparing for the trip and wanting to study the birds, is I would select the location and the date and then say most likely, because I want to know what are the most common species that are going to be there and make sure I know what those birds are and practice those bird calls. And so based on eBird data, Merlin suggests that the most likely species in early April in Colombo are red-vented bulbul, rose-ringed parakeet, brown-headed barbet, Asian quail. And so y'all can tell me if y'all think that that's right. And I look forward to hearing. Now, if I was in Sri Lanka and I was going out birding, I would sort this a little bit differently. Say I was going up to this lagoon, the Negombo Lagoon, which I don't know anything about, but it looks pretty interesting. And so if I was in Colombo, or I would probably look for something like this that might be interesting habitat. You can actually use a map to assign the precise location and then say, okay, I want to know what the likely species are for the Negombo Lagoon on April 5th, 2021. And I want to sort by family most likely. So when I'm there, say I see a tern, and I want to know, well, what are the likely terns that are found here during this time of the year? It'll give me a list of the species of terns and gulls together that are most likely during this time of year. And what it suggests is whiskered tern is the most likely species during this time of year, but you could also see gull-billed tern, white-winged tern, great crested tern, brown-headed gull, lesser black-backed gull, little tern, and so on. And what this tells me is that these are the species, let's say I'm going out there the night before, or I see these birds in the field, these are the species that I really need to make sure I'm considering when I'm doing a bird identification. And if I think it's something else, I want to make sure I'm thinking about these common species first. Because these are the ones that have been reported there in the past during this time of year. So a note on data quality, all of these tools are only possible because of the participation and all of the people who have uploaded their data in a way, to eBird in a way that benefits others in the birding community and others that want to use this data for research and conservation efforts. And so one question some people ask is, how can I make sure my data is useful or improve the value of the checklist? And these are some things to think about. We provide some options. You can do an incidental list, or you can do a complete list. And what a complete list is this a complete checklist of the birds that you were able to identify? And what this means is, yesterday, I could have been out there and just said, you know what, I saw a pectoral sandpiper, and that was new for me this week, so I'm just gonna do an observation of pectoral sandpiper. But there's all these other species out there that were there too. And instead what I did is a complete checklist where I included numbers for each species that I was able to identify when I was out on that flooded road, all 34 species. I also, the recording time was 38 minutes and a kilometer, less than a kilometer. And these are things that will make your checklist more useful for data products, to have a checklist for a specific location or a smaller distance and a smaller time. Now, there are some times that I totally do incidental checklists. Let's say, you know, I'm driving, or, you know, I happen to see something and I just want to record that for my list for that region. You know, I might do an incidental checklist. And an incidental checklist is where I just do one species for a location in a date. And that's fine. We want these tools to work for birders. However, for tools like these frequency bar charts that you see in Merlin, and these regional bar charts, and for things like the use of photo ID that helps us identify birds and really helps birders identify birds, a complete checklist is more useful for these kind of tools. And a more specific location. And so what I mean by a more specific location is that in the past, oftentimes I would do a checklist for the entire day, you know, and I might cover, you know, 30 miles, and I would put all my birds under that one list for 30 miles. And that was interesting, but we can't, there's less things you can do with a long list like that. And having a list of under a kilometer, it's easier to do things and associate that data with a habitat. And so things to think about when collecting data or doing a checklist is to have a shorter duration and distance, and to include all the birds that you're able to identify. The other thing I wanted to mention is that for data quality, we have a filter for every region. And if you report more individuals for a species than is on that filter, then you're gonna get a rare flag. Now, a rare flag is kind of exciting. That means you're seeing something that's unexpected, either a species that's unexpected, or it's you're seeing an unusual number of those individuals. And so in this case, this was a few days ago, I was lucky enough to see a little gull. And little gulls are really cool in the sense that they have this really dark underwing that helps differentiate them from, say, Bonaparte's gulls, which is another smaller gull that is found here. And so when you get that rare flag, then you're asked to add details. And if you have photos, even better. It's add documentation. And we have a network of volunteers around the world that review these, and they have to decide whether to add them to the public output or not. No matter what they decide, it'll still be part of your profile. You control your own data. This is your data, and it's part of your own profile. However, this curation is really important to our data outputs, and making sure that we have data that has high confidence. So if you ever report something that's rare, you might get an email saying, this is rare, could you please add a little bit more documentation? And when you do, we just ask that you keep in mind that these are volunteers that are doing this, volunteering their time to benefit the quality of the data for everyone, and to appreciate the work that they're doing. But I wanted to bring that up in case anybody had any questions about that or any of the other aspects of eBird or Merlin that I covered. So that was an overview, and I purposefully left some time because I would be happy to go into any more detail, but I kind of wanted to see what questions y'all might have about different aspects of both eBird, either eBird or Merlin.
Yeah. Thanks, thanks, Colin. I think I'll get the gallery view. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Colin, for a great presentation. It's quite nice. It's actually really informative, as well as there were a few things that I didn't even know exist for us. So thanks for that. Now the question, the podium is open for questions. As I mentioned, Cullen is happy to answer basically any question, from very technical questions to casual questions. So feel free to shoot. You can just unmute your microphone and ask questions, or you can type in the chat box where we can pick questions and do that. Anyway, is fine. So yeah, please feel free to ask questions, because we asked Cullen to limit his presentation for about 45 minutes so that we can have more questions. He can cater more questions.
Sampath, one question that looked like it came in chat was about the bird pack to install. They downloaded a pack for India, but they asked if there's a bird pack specified for Sri Lanka. And we released the pack for Sri Lanka today, actually, for this event. We wanted to make sure it was publicly available before this event. So you should be able to open bird packs in Merlin, and it should recommend the Sri Lanka pack, or you can look for it there. And if anybody has a question, I'd be happy to open. I could screen share Merlin and show you how to do that.
Great. So yeah, Cullen, you are reading the chat box, right? Yeah. So go ahead. Yeah.
And so I got another direct message from and forgive me if Chandima, and I apologize for not knowing how to pronounce your name. Thank you for the informative presentation. How accurate is the program specifically for waders in winter plumage, as what we observe mostly in Sri Lanka? Thank you very much. Well, I know that waders or shorebirds can be quite challenging. I think that will, I guess I'm not quite clear as to what you're referring to in terms of how accurate is it in terms of Merlin or eBird, eBird data. I don't know if you want to add a note as to what you're referring to. What I would say is that the data quality process is really important for eBird data, and because of that, it is quite accurate. Yeah, data accuracy is something that can be a challenge, and it's something that we all want to kind of think about. With the photo ID, I'll just add one thing about the photo ID. When we've analyzed it, it's been about 93% accurate, but that also depends on the quality of the photo. Obviously, if the bird is far away and you don't have a good chance of identifying it, then photo ID will have a hard time too, without being able to see the details on the bird.
Yeah, there's another question. That's do we need to enter the field itself or later? How do we record the travel distance and time? Cullen, there's a question at the chat.
So if you have your GPS turned on in your cellular device, the app can automatically record your duration and location. In fact, you can see that map, and that the map was actually a screenshot from the app. And so the app itself will record a GPS track, and that is what we recommend, because that GPS track can also be used for analysis as to what habitat you're in. And so, yes, if you turn on location services in your phone, the app will automatically record duration, distance, and actually record where you were.
Cullen, another question. eBird, Nalin Vikramanayaka is asking, eBird will take the phone location. How can we link those point locations to place names? For example, you know, in his case, the Talangama tank and the Esaru Park, these are like specific locations that we know, but the phone will tell you a kind of the GPS point.
Let me just show you actually. This might be more helpful. I'm going to share. I'm just trying to set up my phone here for mirroring.
If you have questions, you can ask questions. You have questions? While Cullen is getting ready with that, yeah, feel free to ask direct questions as well. If you don't have to type all the questions, but yeah, but I think the chat works well as well.
I'm having a problem mirroring my.
While you are doing that, I'll let you know what I would do normally. I will go to that location, and then I can see, say in case Talangama tank, I'll pick there will be options where I can pick Talangama as an option when you give the location, but I think Cullen is going to show that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go to one of my previous checklists, and so this one right here, I'm actually going to edit, so it allows me to open up the checklist, and here are the birds that are reported, and I'll have a chance to go to the review screen, and the review screen allows you to review the data on it, the location, the number of observers. If I add observers, I could share that checklist with somebody else. The minutes of duration. Now the location, it's going to actually have you review that, and it's actually not automatic. You can't upload the checklist without taking a look at the location. And when I do, I can have a list of nearby locations. The blue points are my personal locations that I've done in the past, and the orange points are actually hotspots. Another way of looking at this is on the map. And again, you can kind of see this is where I walked. This is with the beach, and this is a flooded road. And I can select this I can select you know, the Bolivar Flats Shorebird Survey Start. That's actually a hotspot for a survey, so I'm not going to pick that. I can pick the Bolivar Flats Shorebird Sanctuary at Redalon Road. And so if you want to add it to a hotspot, you can just pick it on the map or from the nearby or the recent selection, and then hit that location and then save it. Does that
Yeah, I think that explains. There was another similar one connected to that there in the chat, Cullen. The question is, how did Merlin know those locations? Can Sri Lanka users upload some geographic data to help?
So let's go over to Merlin. Yeah, so we actually uploaded the location names, I think, from Google, and it has it pulls from a large database of place names, and so, you know, if you go to explore and you want to pick the location, likely birds, you could try to pick a different place. And so we could actually try and see if it could recognize a location. So we could try and just writing Negombo. And see if it pulls it up. But if it doesn't come up, the other thing you can do is click the map. And once you click the map, you can search. And so oftentimes there are no place names. So for example, when I'm birding in the Amazon, there's very few place names in Google. And oftentimes I have to just select a location. And so if you're going to a location and you didn't have a place name, then what you could do is just move the point, zoom in, and then click that, and then it'll assign a location. And what it's doing is it's going to assign a location and then pull eBird data, all of the eBird data that was submitted nearby.
Hi, Kalan.
Yes.
I have a small question. So let's say there's an unlikely bird sighting at a particular location, right? There could be rare instances where you don't usually see this bird on that particular location, right? And then when you submit it, how does the authentication process happen? As in, is there any verification process? As in, if there's an unusual sighting? That is what I wanted to ask.
So we rely on volunteers, and we have about 1,500 volunteers around the world, and they work in teams, and they will review that data, and if there's documentation, they can confirm it, and it'll be added to the public output, or sometimes they might ask for additional information. And so you might get an email and they say, this is an unusual record, and so there's a form email, but they might add notes and say, this is an unusual record, can you please add notes? And so in the case, for example, where I added information on that little goal, I tried to add it, and I'm not a reviewer for this part of Galveston, and so I don't know if that observation has been accepted or not, but I tried to add notes of how I identified it, what I saw on the bird, the fact that there was dark under the wings, it was a small gull, how far I was, and things like that. Things that can just, and that's a good thing, because it's not just, those are good things to add to an observation, because it's not just for being accepted, it's something that, these are interesting observations from down the line. And so somebody might be looking at this data and be interested in that observation, 20 years from now. And so it's going to be helpful to have notes about about that observation when possible.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Kyle.
Colin, I have a question. That when you go for a new location, like say in Sri Lanka, because since Sri Lanka's coverage is still thin, relatively thin, the lists are more scattered to more touristy and play hotspots, right? So when I go to a place where other birders have not been visited or other e-birders have not been visited, so I get when I download the Sri Lanka list, it flags more, like even common birds get flagged because whenever I enter. So I know some birds, for example, in play, like I know that they are very common in that region, in that area, and they are common. I can see them a lot, but still it gives me that flag. So I think the reason is that because the data layer is thin, so over time confidence goes up and it will be okay. But I wonder whether for a birder, like a foreign birder or a local birder who's not sure about that, how would that cause trouble, because they would think that they are making an error, yeah, right? Because even common birds get flagged as rare ones.
Yeah, and I think that that's valuable feedback, and I think that oftentimes the filters can be improved with more data. And if there are species that are genuinely common that shouldn't be on the filter, then we can look at that and look at improving that filter for that region. But sometimes it can be, and this is something where
Yes, Anthony, your microphone is on, and there's some. Malaka, can you mute Anthony, please?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Kalan.
This is something where folks can help identify some of those things. And so if there's a situation, but it can be kind of challenging depending on how the filters are set up. And so, for example, you can have a situation where, like, one of the regions that I review, there is a small population of dove at this one park, but it's very rare outside of that park. And so, because the filter is for this entire large county, we don't want to put we want to keep it as rare, because we want to make sure people know in any other area. But this one park, there's this one population, and so everybody's going to this park, and they're like, every time I come here, I see this white-tipped dove, and it always flags that it's rare, but it's here always. And yes, we know it's there always. And so there are some kind of limitations like that are going to be kind of challenging. And so if it's a known location, then something you can say is that this is a known location. There's lots of observations here, or something like that. But I think that this is something that we're thinking about, and would love to kind of improve how these filters work, because it's always kind of tricky to take into account all these different situations.
Yeah, especially in regions like Sri Lanka, where the data layer is thin, it can add a bit of confusion. One more question from me, Kalan. I've made a mistake about a year ago. I was in Gujarat. I was covering the Little Run of Kutch, which is one of the key, one of the best birding areas in South Asia. But I've done the entire LRK, Little Run of Kutch, as one list. So so eBird is preventing me uploading it because it covers too wider area. So still it's sitting in my personal unsubscribed list. What should I do? Should I have to manually cut it into pieces? Or is there a way that I can chop it into small pieces? Because I've used my my GPS tracker, so it knows where I was, and it covers about 75 or 80 kilometer, or even slightly more. So it doesn't allow me to submit. It has about 250 birds in it. So I wanted to read it.
Well, yeah, I have some lists like that too. Like there was this, I did a boat trip in Manu. I did a boat trip from, and it was like this, I did this 100-mile list, keeping track of the birds that I saw along the way. And I guess, you could go back and divide that up if you actually know which parts of that you actually saw those birds. But what I generally tell people is that, I have some lists like that are not part of public output, but they're still part of my records, and they're part of my profile, and they're part of my records. But I think I think that it's every now and then it's fine to have lists like that, and understand that a 100-mile list or a long list like that, we just can't use it for data products that are more spatially explicit, which is what we need to do for birders. And that's fine, but going forward, if you go back there, it would make sense to break that up into smaller lists, and then look at the summary. Because one of the things you can do is you can still see the summary for your entire day in the eBird checklist.
Can you elaborate, Kalan? Can you elaborate that? I think I asked that question from you earlier day. you know, like we like to have dailies. Most birders like to see dailies, but dailies add complications because you travel to different locations, right? So that will pollute the data layer. Can you elaborate that? You was about to start that.
Yeah, and so so if you go to eBird, one of the things you can do if you go to checklists, like so here's your on an iPhone, this is the start screen. And if you click on checklists, you see a button down here at the bottom called trip summaries. And if you click on trip summaries, then there's three options. There's a trip summary, and there's today. If you click today, that's your day list. It gives you a day list. And that summarizes all the checklists that you've uploaded on the app. You can also do a trip summary, and that will, you can adjust the dates, and you could do that for one day. So I could do a whole weekend if I want to keep track of all the birds I'm seeing. If I'm doing a weekend trip and I want to know all the species that I'm seeing on the entire weekend trip, this will create a summary of all the species during those dates that I assign. And so that's one way to do that, is to keep track of that way.
Great. Thanks. There's a question. From Dr. Newton Javadana Cullen at the chat box that some of our endemics are not listed as endemics there. So do you have any at Merlin? Some of the endemics are not listed as Sri Lanka.
Yeah. So what do yeah, could you extrapolate?
Yeah, if I send you the Sri Lanka endemic list, would that help?
So no, but I'm sorry. What I don't see, some of the endemic birds are not listed as Sri Lanka. Are you talking about on Merlin?
I think it's about on Merlin. Dr. Newton, you are on the. Can you elaborate that, please?
And provide an example.
Dr. Newton, can you elaborate that if you can? Anyway, let's continue.
While waiting for Dr. Newton, I would just say that we would welcome any feedback on the text or otherwise. And that's something that, you know, we've already reached out to. That's one of the reasons that we reached out to Foxhole in the first place, is that the feedback from groups like Foxhole are critical for us, and we definitely look forward to any feedback that y'all have on the species accounts or any other aspect of Merlin.
Okay, Karan, I have a bit of it's not a question, just to understand what is sort of the underlying technology. I mean, this using the Cornell lab has a lot of apps like iNaturalist and these identification apps. Do we have use the same underlying technology for all these?
Yeah, so you mentioned iNaturalist, which is the Cal Academy of Sciences in California. And so Cornell Lab of Ornithology isn't associated with iNaturalist, although they're friends of ours. But what they do use, in fact, the same team that helped develop Merlin, the photo ID for Merlin Bird ID, also worked with iNaturalist on their photo ID. And this is, they're a team that includes researchers from Cornell Tech, Caltech, as well as Cornell, and what they were not ornithologists. They were people that were working in machine learning. Although they've become more birders working with us, because I think that's inevitable. Once you get exposed to birders, eventually you'll crack and go out birding on your own. right? Anyway, so these are researchers in machine learning and artificial intelligence. And one of the reasons that they wanted to work with us is that we had such a large, well-curated data set of photos. And so they were actually working on what they call, you know, fine-grained image classification and how to improve image classification. And birds are really challenging. It's one thing to say that there's a bird in an image. It's another thing to say what species out of thousands of species. And so it's been a really, really interesting collaboration working with Cornell Tech and Caltech to train models with these data sets that was only possible because we have so many photos and because we have an expert community that helped curate and go through these photos again and create a even, you know, further vetted data set of photos to help train these models and then load that model into Merlin, and also something that's what iNaturalist does as well, to classify images. Is that, I hope that answered your question.
Yes, and is it so? I assume it's the sort of the similar technology where the Facebook and all are using for face recognition, etc.
Yeah, so I don't really know how Facebook is doing it, but yes, it's they you know, I assume, and I haven't worked with Facebook, so I don't really know, but you know, one of the things that people do on Facebook is they classify images. You know, they say this image is Sampath. You know, this image is Malacca. This image is Cullen. You know, and you do that enough, and what they can do is that they train that to, I guess, suggest. You know, and this has been pretty cutting edge stuff in the last 10 years in terms of ability to train to classify images.
Okay.
Colin, along that same line, there was a question in the chat asking again how accurate Vader or shorebird identification in it. I'll add some small bit just as a user that I've experienced. This is for the audience, guys. When you have a photo, like even when you get a photo from the LCD panel, you have your camera, big camera, and you get a screenshot from the LCD panel. Then you can crop that in Merlin app. You can upload that photo from your smartphone, and then you can crop to the exact bird, because in a situation in a wetland, you have, like, say about 10, 15 or maybe less, about 5, 6 birds in the same shot. From that, you can actually crop and focus into the bird that you wanted to identify. So that is the one that Merlin get picked and try to ID. So that is quite cool, because you know, when you have a shot where you have like 10 curlew sandpipers, 1 little stint, and 1 unknown bird that you wanted to ID, you can zoom that into that bird. Anyway, Colin, the question to you is that how accurate and how we use, how can we trust like a say a fall plumage warbler or a molting shorebird in March, or just like a subadult first winter gull, like, you know, like that sort of like a super challenging situations. How confident can we be?
Okay, so I'm going to answer this question in 2 ways. Actually, I'm going to answer this question in 3 ways, right? One is that it's only as good as the data set supporting it, which is why your images and sounds are valuable, and it's good to have a bunch of examples of every species. It's also good to not just have pictures of the breeding plumage, you know, examples, but also you know, plumage all across the year of both sexes, of all age classes. And so I would say that we have really good representation for a lot of species, but not all species. And so we actually have a targets page where you can see how many images we have for each species. And so, so that is something to consider. The other thing that I'll say, the second way I'll answer this question is that Merlin, I don't want people to think of Merlin as a tool that identifies birds for you. Merlin is a tool that helps you identify birds. It doesn't matter how accurate it is. You are ultimately the person that's identifying the bird, and this is a tool that helps you become a better bird identifier. And so one of the things that I'll look at this and just use this as an example. So I'm going to choose a photo here. I'm going to pick, this is the sandpiper I saw yesterday, the waiter. I'm going to kind of zoom in, you know, like there's actually another bird in the background, but I'm going to zoom in and say that I'm going to focus on this bird, you know. I'm going to actually change the date. It was the 24th, and the location change, it was right here in Port Bolivar, and I'm going to say identify. Now it says pectoral sandpiper, but it also says it could be a least. Basically, it's saying we think it's a pectoral sandpiper, but it might be a least, or it could be another plumage-ready turnstone. But what we do is we provide links to these, and you can explore that. And so the next step is to check out this bird. You know, you can look at each of the birds, look at the age classes, look at the map. Is this something that's going to be here this time of year? You can also listen to the sounds. It would be more like the flight calls this time of year. I don't know if y'all can hear that.
No, we can't. We can't. That's okay.
Oh, well.
Yeah, but
the point is that photo ID suggests something, but ultimately, you know, we hope that you're using all the pieces of the identification puzzle to help put that together and think about it. Does this jive with the habitat, with the sounds that you heard, the behavior that you saw, the other aspects to do that? And but I guess the third way I would say is that yes, to me, I find it quite impressive at all plumages, not just the
Colin, yeah, I agree, Colin. I checked a few, you know, test examples, and it all pointed to the right bird. Yeah, my experience is also there. Yeah, but for gulls and tricky birds, I think your second and first answers would apply more, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I find it really interesting on tricky birds. I think that it can be helpful, and this is a helpful tool. But again, we really want people to think through the identification on their own, regardless of what the photo ID says.
Yeah. Another question, actually more of a comment, came from the chat box, is that somebody is suggesting we need more reviewers so that it get, because the reviews we found a bit slow and takes time here. So somebody is suggesting whether we can have more reviewers in for Sri Lanka, volunteer reviewers, so that the review process would be faster and probably.
I'll bring that up with the team. I'll bring that up with the team, and I'm happy to bring that up with the. Sure.
Yeah, please. And there are a fair bit of gaps as well. Colin, as I mentioned, you know, there are mountain specialists, mountain endemics are listed in the coastal cities, extremely limited cloud forest species, or bamboo specialists are listed in home gardens and in city parks. So there are the Malabar hornbill issue. I think what happened, the Malabar grey hornbill been somehow kind of mixed up with the Malabar pied hornbill. So that's that. So that's sort of, these are all, they're part of the process, right? I know that these are not negative criticism. This is the process, as the data layer goes thicker and thicker, it gets more confident and it gets better and better. Yes. But I think adding more reviewers may help as well. Yeah.
Well, we definitely want to hear, constructive negative criticism. And so we again, that's one of the reasons that we rely on partners like you. And so we look forward to having an open channel to hear your feedback.
Yeah, and any more questions? Chat box is kind of over. I think we've covered all chat box. Dr. Newton is stating that only 18 birds are labeled as endemics in eBird for Sri Lanka. So what I can do, I can send you the endemic list anyway, if that helps.
Sure.
Yeah. And Sulakshmi, yes, I am in Sri Lanka. I'll be normally helping, there are lots of Facebook queries and, in my Dropbox asking questions. Yes, I can be of service, and
so
if there's any.
I did see one question about the Swarovski optic, the DG.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, I missed it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that should work. That relies on the photo ID, and that should work in Sri Lanka.
Yeah. So if we don't have any more questions,
I just have one more.
right, yeah.
Yeah. Now, mostly we discuss about identifying difficult birds, but there are those who are new to bird watching, who would not be able to identify even the common birds, and I'm sure the Merlin would be a very good tool for them to help out on these identifying the birds around them, and so they'll get encouraged, even the kids, youngsters. So how do you see this as? Do you have a lot of positive cases where the Merlin has been used in promoting bird watching to those who are new and the younger generation, etc.?
Yes. Well, sometimes it's hard for me to know who all is using it, but we have a much larger community that's already using Merlin than participating in eBird. And so we know that there's a lot of people that are using Merlin that aren't using eBird, and we don't exactly know who, always know who that is, but we think that that's great. That was kind of the goal of producing Merlin, is to make it accessible and useful for as many people as possible. And so I know that there are cases, I don't know the full breadth of it, and I know some examples where teachers do use it as a resource, but in those cases, I think that it's oftentimes coupled with some kind of curriculum or some other kind of environmental education curriculum or kind of strategy.
Thanks.
All right, I think it's midnight for Cullen, and I think yeah, if you have any questions, just yeah, disturb me. If not, yeah, sir. So you are muted. Let's go ahead, sir.
No, I'm okay. Right. Following from what Malaka just mentioned, my concern and my desire is to make this as simple as possible so that we can use it as not just only as a tool to record information for the science, but to capture more people into the area. So what is the opportunity of sometimes cutting down the megabyte number by looking at, like, for example, like a tip, like I will give, like, say, okay, the common birds of Sri Lanka, maybe around 100 or 50 or whatever it is, because then it will answer a little bit of what Martha just said. You know, we can take it into the field in a very small way. You don't need big things. You know, with most people are having like 3G, 2G or whatever it is. That is what I understand, right? They all have smartphones, but do they have the capacity to carry all this is somewhat the question. So is there a potential to start with for the beginner, like sort of, where we take it into a school?
You know, this is something that we've thought about. It's really challenging. You know, we've thought about different strategies for reducing the size of the bird packs, also making it easier for people to share them or download them. But getting the right, figuring out how to come up with the right common species is really challenging, because what we found when we did that is that very quickly people end up with not having the species that they're looking at, because the common species that work in this neighborhood might be different than the next neighborhood, and it's easy to come up with maybe some of the common species, but then there's oftentimes some species mixed in that aren't the expected common species, and so it's really challenging to figure out what the right species for that is and to make it scalable across all of Sri Lanka, much less all of Sri Lanka, all of India, all of Africa, you know, just different regions. It's something that we really would like to do, because you're right, it's so important to make it accessible. And we know that the download and the size of the packs is a barrier for people to use Merlin. And so I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's something that we're definitely thinking of, and we'd like to improve that accessibility. But trying to figure out how to do that right is not something that's been totally clear for us.
So what I would take is that the potential or the possibility exists, because if we make it easy for you in terms of the question or the doubt that you had, what is the thing? Like I would go in a very different way. Being an educator, I put it this way: if you are going to teach the kindergarten, I would have like 10 birds. What I'm doing there is 3 things actually. One is that I'm making them tech savvy, because they're anyway, right? They like to be punching or pressing things and be showing that I have a smartphone or whatever it is. Second, they enable themselves to know the birds of their immediate area, which is a school ground and home. And thirdly, they are being promoted into the bigger picture, right? So it makes it easy for the teacher, who may not be a birder of any sort, but this is like a laboratory tool, you know. So if we can come from Sri Lanka, the listing that you require, then, you know, we can sort of work it out, I believe.
So what do you think of like just being able to download the likely species for your location instead of all the species for Sri Lanka?
All the species for Sri Lanka is already now available, right? For you in the eBird.
No, what I'm saying is
this areas, it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
We can get the whole country picture. We are not interested in the whole country picture here. We are interested, like, say, hill country, or we are talking Colombo, or we are talking, say, another extreme other corner like Batiklo. No, for the system to use it, it is the school system to use it. Because when we work into the school system, the bigger picture becomes a bit of a hindrance, you know, and also the children start wandering away. We want them to get to know what they're doing well from the small picture. As I said, the third is that, okay, you're free to leave from there, but first get the understanding, get a hook of what you're trying to do, get to know what is this tool, all of that. We can use it in the nature studies program. We have the environmental pioneers program. We can lock it down there to start with. And then, of course, they are free to go into the big picture, no issue. But this is a more specific thing at the more minor level or at the more academic level of a school, where the teachers, many of them are not the type that we know.
Kalan, may I interrupt? I think Prof is referring to something like Cornell's bird ID, that tutorial. At the Cornell has this bird ID tutorial where we use they have a pack like that for simple bird identification, simple call identification and all. I use for the ornithology class in our 3rd year level. So something like that specifically for schools and the ultra entry beginners.
Yeah, I think that we definitely want to make Merlin more accessible for anybody, and we don't want the size to be downloaded. We also have developed, we've had groups that have worked on curriculum for schools. Celebrate Urban Birds has been one of them. And what they've done is start with the most common species, like the 10 most common species at a location, and really kind of focus on those and use that as part of a curriculum. And that's a different program than I'm part of, although we've worked together before. But I can definitely share some of their materials if that's something that people are interested in and learning more about, to see if they would be of interest.
Somebody clarifies that even like a kiddie pack. Like
Nalini is asking, right?
Yeah, it's referring that like a simple version. I think since like Fogessel is attached to a university where like Cornell, I think there's a room there we can further discuss this offline later, right? Along that line, how we can incorporate this sort of a broader, much more sophisticated system into a very simple communication tool that might apply to all other places in the world as well. So, yes.
We also got a question, can we translate the text? Yes, we've translated the text into several different languages, and that's something that we support. If we have a partner that's interested in, if we obviously need the translations, but yeah, we've been, and what we can do is we can translate. What we would do is start by translating the app UI, the user interface, like the navigation, and then add the species text. And we could do, for example, all the species for Sri Lanka. Like and when we release a pack in Mexico, for example, we worked with Canabio, which is in Mexico, and they helped us translate all of the species accounts for the species in Mexico. And if there's interest in that in Sri Lanka, we'd be happy to talk about that.
Colin,
yes.
Prof, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we already have the translations for the identifications in Tamil and Sinhala, so it's not a issue, but it's that collaboration that we would like to have. I think I'm very keen about that angle, I learned my birds in English, so I told you, English through birds.
And
that's
Colin,
another trick.
Colin, Professor Kottagama being the pioneer in basically bringing like very exclusive, like a post-colonial birding limited to few city middle class to bring that to the common man in Sri Lanka. So he been considered the person who done that. He's done translations in both Sinhala and Tamil and bringing ornithology and birding into the general public. So he has the tools and the logistics for that. I think just a matter of simply working with you all.
Well, we would be really excited about that. We think that that's incredibly important, and so I would be the person to talk to. So we're happy to follow up with that.
Thank
So-
you.
All right, then I think we'll we'll wind this session. I feel I mean, thank you so much, Colin, because it's past midnight for you Friday. I think go and get a beer. so thanks, and you've done a great service, not just to Merlin or eBird, but to the greater birding community across the borders. And it's been very nice, very interesting, very informative for both novice and seasoned eBird users. And also, I hope that our Facebook audience, as well as the here Zoom audience, would use eBird and Merlin more, and encourage others to use Merlin, especially for the beginners, to encourage them to use Merlin as a aid in their birding. And as Colin tried to show that it's amazing, and we are part of a very big movement. It's not just it's a movement. It's the new liberalism, where the everybody contributes and making a common voice for this planet. And it's been used across the globe for court cases, to protect new habitats, to save species, not just far away, even in India. It has been used for protection of species, the bastards and the great Gujarati plains, to save habitats. So I think it's time for us to use it in Sri Lanka for conservation. We've been using, started to use that, but in a greater scheme. So your simple observations will make a big ripple, a tsunami across the planet, to save the bulldozers' ignorance, and that causes the planet to wasteland. So this is one small way to contribute in a big way. Thank you very much, Colin, for your time. Thank you very much, all the emails and all the questions and all the the correspondences that we had over the past few weeks. And thank you very much for putting the Sri Lanka pack today. So we have a Sri Lanka pack now in Merlin to download. As Colin mentioned, there's a company India pack as well. So together it will be fairly thorough. And Colin, I will go through the species accounts, and I'll continue to suggest if I see any discordance in terms of the information. And yeah, so it's been a great few 2 hours. Thank you very much. For our viewers, I will spend another 10 minutes just to try to put this in Sri Lankan context. Colin, feel free to stay, or if it is too late for you and you must be tired, you are free to be off the hook.
Well, I might cut out here in a minute just because we're going birding early in the morning. But I did want to say a big thank you to Professor Kuragama and to you and to everybody here who was willing to listen to the presentation. We're only we're only successful if y'all use these tools, and if these tools benefit birding community and Sri Lanka. And so we really rely on you for feedback and also for getting the word out about Merlin. And we really look forward to seeing how these tools, both eBird and Merlin, will be used in Sri Lanka. And so I look forward to staying in touch about all of this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir.
May I then say good night now? And happy sleep. You'll see Sri Lankan birds in your dreams.
That would be nice. I want to see Sri Lankan birds in person.
Yeah.
Please
so
come.
consider this as an open invitation. If you ever decided to come to Sri Lanka, Fogesel will host you. We'll be your host. Okay, so that invitation is there now on.
Okay. Well, have a wonderful rest of your meeting, and I look forward to following up.
Cheers.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Karan.
man. All right. So it's, yeah, thank you for being there. So I'll just give a very quick briefing on what we're going to do now on. I will talk 10 minutes just to put the context on about the eBird and the Merlin in the Sri Lankan context. And then 11 o'clock we'll stop and we'll have a half an hour. So you are mute.
Don't stop at 11. Do the needful properly. We have to
Yes.
try and connect with Modita or Gary if possible.
Yeah.
Who are right? So
Okay.
and
All
then
right, so anyway,
don't rush. Don't rush.
Right.
We have time
Yeah.
till 11:30. We have, so don't worry.
By 11:30. Anyway, okay. So we'll finish this after that.
Stop maybe around 11:30. It's okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
For the Sri Lankan section, let's say, okay, we have half an hour, so you can stop at 11:20.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good.
Depending on what is there, right? And then we have 10 minutes break and can come back for the AGM at 11:30.
Yeah. So the AGM will start at 11:30. AGM is only for the members,
Only for the members.
and there will be a separate link for AGM. Yeah, now on we'll have a quick kind of a session on the eBird and Merlin in Sri Lanka. Modita Hiranya Kodikara Arachi, one of the probably the most promising young birder, and becoming he's making a serious mark in out in the field as well as in the social media in terms of helping people identifying birds, pushing the boundaries in birding, and try to get rare birds identification easy, and also to push other birders to go for the extra mile to get a new bird or to get a difficult bird identified, and so on, and helping others. So Modita, so we invite Modita to come and having his views on he's a big eBirder as well on this platform. But today there's something funny happened. We invite Dr. Gary Alport, the senior, advisor, senior advisor to the CEO of BirdLife International, who lives in Sri Lanka, like an international birder, a very knowledgeable person. Also, and Mr. Ajit Gamage, who has been an e-birder for a while and been a birder and a naturalist. And they all three said that Modita said yes, he'll join. Gary and Ajit said that no, they can't because they are on a pelagic trip. It ended up that all three are now off Mirissa watching seabirds on a pelagic trip. But Modita said he'll try. And I tried to call him several times over the past 10 minutes. And now they are out of, I think, range. Because according to the boat, till the shipping line, international shipping line, you have signal. And then after you lose signal. So seems like Modita is off the range. So as Gary and Ajit. And so they will see cool birds, hopefully. We were there last month, for Gazelle pelagic trip. We didn't see anything substantial except, I think, 4 phalarops, redneck phalarops. Right, coming back, I will start from there. Something that Cullen hasn't touched. In the eBird checklist, there are different protocols. Like, you normally switch on your tracker, the GPS tracker, so that it started to show where it is. And then after about an hour or like a few kilometers pass, you can either switch off the tracker or you can summarize the list and you upload it. In Sri Lanka, most of the places you have the signal on internet or the data signal. So then, so you can upload it, or you can work on offline. You can download the list and you can work offline. So don't worry whether you are online or offline. It doesn't hinder your eBird data recording ability. When you have data back in the hotel or back in your home or wherever you are, you can just upload the list. It doesn't hinder. As long as you keep the GPS tracker off, it doesn't count. But the problem is that sometimes you forget to, it happened to me all the time, I forgot to switch off the GPS tracker, so it shows my entire day's travel and it pollutes. So then I have to manually show that where I start and where I end. So don't worry about that. And in my personal thing, my phone has all the trouble that ever a smartphone has. So it sometimes the eBird gets stuck. So my suggestion is just refresh it, and normally it will. Yeah, so Nalin is saying is yes, you can add the location later as well. And as Cullen showed, you can manually add it in from the map, or you can type it and you can add later the actual location. That's one thing. Another small issue that I've seen in Sri Lankan list, some people just add one like in front of the name of the bird. Don't just add a random number like 1. If you see 2 spotted doves, just add 2. Don't add just 1, so that you have a kind of a record of the species. Because what that happened, it shows that you've seen only 1 individual of that species. So if you see 10, do that. And eBird users would know that eBird has the function that you don't have to add the number, you can just record the species. But adding the number always better. And it adds much more information into the system. And don't think that this information just go to some other country and somebody else is using. We can use this information locally to understand, as Cullen shows, like to locate a bird, to identify where these birds are, to understand where they are common, when they are breeding, when they are migrating. So it is for us to use, and it is free to use. Something interesting about this is that people don't think that you have to go an extraordinary like a weekend trip to add list. The biggest use of eBird is that your ability to record every day. For example, my brother travels from Galle to Colombo in the train, and every day he adds a list. So he just start the list in the morning from Galle and end the list in Colombo every day. I know people who travel from, say, Talawatugoda to Boralla. Every day they add that list. So it's just a one routine thing that they do. They on the list, a checklist, and then bicycle or motor bicycle or vehicle, whatever, bus. And then in the office, the first thing is that you just summarize it and upload it. Just maybe 2 minutes, and it's done. So when you do that, when you do it for a year or 2 or 3, you start to see amazing patterns. They are much more extraordinary, much more exciting, much more valuable than your list in Horton Plains, or your list to Jaffna, or your list to Singharaja. Because those lists are just one single list. To make that exciting, hundreds of people has to do that. But your own list to your work, or another place where people can add that you go to pick your kid from a tuition class, or a piano class, or a cricket practice, and you every day by the ground, you just get a list of, say, 10 minutes. Doesn't matter, it can be very simple, 3-4 species, it can be complicated 30-40 species, and then you upload it. So when you do that, after a while, the same observer, same location, same duration, and that field started to show the changes. That field started to show what are the changes that has been taking place in the bird community, in our places, like, in your kid's school, or in your workplace, or in your daily commute. What are the things changing through time? from January to December through years from, say, last decade to this decade, and also to, in a way, it's an ability, your ability. How would you be able to get a new species in every so often? So it's like a race to you, like it's a challenge to you to try to get a new species to the list. After a while, your daily commute become much more interesting and challenging to you, because you might desperately try to get one. I've done that in airports. Whenever I go to a airport, new or old, I try to have an airport list. So I try to desperately get one or two birds, whatever the bird that I could get from the airport, because when you travel abroad, you pass several airports as transit. So you can't do anything other than just waiting in the tarmac. So by doing the tarmac birding, you can get few birds. And I have airport list for over 70 or 80 airports across the globe. Very small list, like 3 birds, 1 bird, 2 birds. But I have lifers in there. I have new species for the country. If I see a bird in that country, then I count that country as a country that I visited. So that's how 50 plus countries that I have through the number of birds that I've seen. So anyway, so all these can be incorporated into eBird, and the Merlin will help you to ID. Dimitri, what if you can't count the number? Yeah, if you can't count the number, don't worry. You can just check the species without the number. That function is there. That is the default function, and then you can type the number if you want. Similarly, you can add the breeding status, other ecological status there as well. Another small thing about Sri Lanka list. Okay, I was talking about Modita being out in the pelagic in a pelagic trip today. So what he would do, he will follow the pelagic protocol. In eBird, there's a slightly a different format for the offshore birding, because it doesn't have place names, it doesn't have the distance and all. So normally they suggest you start your list, your pelagic list, after 2 nautical miles away. 2 nautical miles away, and then you have a list in every 3 nautical miles, or I think an hour pass. So that way you can have short, small list covering smaller gaps. As Cullen shows earlier, then later you can have a day's list, because it is there in the thing, but you upload several lists. If you are offline, when you are offshore, sometimes you are offline, you can just have lists, and then you upload those lists later. Merlin pack. A Merlin pack, now we have a Sri Lankan pack. If you noticed issues, feel free to email, or yeah, I will type my email address. I'll try to, okay, give me a second to everyone. sam@sci.cmb.ac.lk. Feel free to email. Oh, sorry, that's Sam. Sam. Yeah. So sorry. So that's my email address. So if you see any kind of errors, there are a few. Do that. The range maps needs more refinement. That will come with time. The more we do, these are citizen science information. So more we add, the better it gets. And these are not password protected. These are not, the things that are in the ivory towers where nobody can talk about it. It's all kind of hush hush. You have to get permission to talk. No, this is not like that. This is the way, like just like the fog cell operation. It's open. It's free. It's public information for public. Any questions? If you have any questions, I can I can cater few. Okay, before that, one small thing. The coverage. We are entering a lot of information in Mana. I've seen people entering a lot of information in Singaraja, Nuwara, Matara, Kirakale, and then Gaul to Colombo, and then in the Badulla, Passara area, Jaffna little bit, and so on. So it is spreading. So feel free, add list as you go across the country, so there will be a better coverage. One small issue that I also time to time stumble upon is that our species names. Pay attention to species names. For example, recently one of the admins, Facebook volunteers, emailed me and say that you put crested drango. Crested drango is an African species. Because I sometimes let my son to add the list. So when I say crested drango, he had crested drango. There is a crested drango, and it is not even found in Sri Lanka. Ours is Sri Lanka drango. I think that's how it's stays. Similarly, black bulbul. Black bulbul is a eastern Himalayan species. Ours is square-tailed bulbul. I mean, in the eBird list. So when you use names, be careful, because if a similar, like when you use, like I call it forest bulbul or black bulbul or crested drango. For common names, I have my own way of saying it. But the eBird has its list. If you mix up, it will think that it is a species from some other region. So pay a little bit attention, because sometimes like if you enter a wrong species, it will go into the system, and it may or may not get cleaned over time. So that is something to be careful, especially Sri Lanka being a very diverse country. I can see like hill swallows reported across the coastal belt erroneously. Yellow-eared bulbul is recorded in coastal belt, again erroneously. And then last week there was an issue like Malabar pied hornbill range is listed as wet zone, not as dry zone. All these stem from these erroneous records. So the administrators has to, or the volunteer administrators has to clean that up. But it's easier for them if you do a one like quick filtering first before uploading this information. All right. Modita is not online. It seems like I can't see Modita here. Yeah. Any questions or any comments, or Malaka?
Yeah,
Malaka, you
I will
are
come.
welcome.
Yes,
I
sir.
will come in here. Yes, Sampath, I'll come in. Thank you. I think what I noticed, or what I would want to suggest here, I am not a eBird user. I have not used it, even though I have a what you call a portal or whatever it is. My name is there in eBird. I have never used it, but we have been promoting eBird in FogSL for a long time. Now I think we are coming into a maturity stage, coming of age, you can say, along with Merlin. So what I would like to propose, that which we will do next in the coming activities for 2021, is that since there is a fair amount of personnel who are using eBird, I think it would be important to bring together the different issues and thoughts and processes. Like now, Sampath, you mentioned a lot of things in your own experience. And I'm sure there are many others who will have some experience of some problem or other using it and things like that. So my first suggestion is that FogSL will host activity of eBird Cafe. eBird Cafe. If things become normal, we can have it in campus, linked, of course, outwards through the computer, or that's another situation. Or we can also, anyway, we'll still think about the mechanism. That is one thing. It is to really discuss all these issues of everybody in a much more open forum of those who are using it very extensively, identify a couple of very experienced persons of the eBird and along with many of the others who are using, and create this eBird Cafe link and discuss that. Second thing is, which you just ended up with the names of what is there in eBird. As in the past, this has always been an issue when we start on something new over time, because the users are different or the name creators are different and things like that with respect to the vernacular names. As I have always said, yes, we have a protocol for vernacular names, but don't argue on that. That is not the criteria, right? If you can ultimately get yourself a handle of the scientific name, that is the best. But we also recognize that children and others are not in that thing. So therefore we need. FogSL has always put out a name list at the beginning of every year along with the AGM and soon after of the names that have been certified or has been put into what is called the BirdLife checklist. This is the past that has happened. But now, since Cornell has really taken over the popularization of birds across the world, in conjunction with BirdLife International, we will be putting out, which we started from last year. That is how the square-tailed bulbul name came into the picture. Then we had the swamp hen. Our swamp hen has now become a gray-necked swamp hen or something like that, and all this. So we will, with this initiation taken to link up with the eBird and Merlin, we will look at that listing which is been, I forget the name, I had it yesterday, I forget. Anyway, we will do the same process and unify it. That is the whole idea, so that there is no confusion of the names that in the vernacular names. Of course, if individuals want to use whatever it is, that is up to them. But in the database, I think it is very important that there is one acceptable name so that the data becomes more reasonable in that sense. As Sampath just mentioned, you know, all these confusions when you don't really have that right thing. So we will follow that process as we have done last. So somewhere within the month of April, everybody will get a checklist name based on the eBird list, which is now the standard of BirdLife also, which normally comes out every December of the year. So we will check with the 2020 December list and update our names with it. That is what we have done in even our publications. If you look at my publications, that's why we have changed the names, and people have been asking, why are you changing names? This is the basis. So the global name is what comes at the end of the day. Then in that also, Sri Lanka is used, if Sri Lanka is used for endemic, sorry, if an endemic is to be used with the vernacular of the country name, then Sri Lanka will always come with it. That again is an agreement we have come up in BirdLife, so that it doesn't bring about a confusion. So that, of course, now as Dr. Jayawardhan has already mentioned, Newton has mentioned, it is easier and it gives a little bit of a pride, I know, that if you have Sri Lanka in front of the endemic name for the users in the country, and it backs out very easily. So that we will follow anyway, because that is something that was agreed many years ago with BirdLife. So the third idea that I want to give is that from among the users of the eBird, and now that you have Merlin, FogSL would be very happy to have a group of personnel whom we can recognize, Sampath and Malaka, which you all are doing these things, and maybe Newton also I know is doing, and Ajit and Modita, or maybe get together and recognize some, what I would say, barefoot promoters. The barefoot idea is coming from China, like the barefoot doctors, or, you know, where then we can use them in the popularization of this in a more technical way across the country. Because our objective, as Sampath, you clearly said in the introduction to the whole program, is that we must have rational people when it comes to the use of nature. And that can only happen if we continue to do our promotional activities rightly in the scientific way. So we need to recognize some group of personnel from among the eBird and Merlin users and get them, because now when you are saying you have to press this, press that, you know, how do you go and do that with a new guy, right? Unless you know, upload this and then press this and go that, somebody must guide the children, you know, must guide the new users. So we'll try to create that also, which is the third platform. So then we will have a better way of taking the process forward, right? Otherwise, individuals will do it and individuals will throw in the data, and then you need the server person to sort these things out very often, and it becomes a little bit of a unhealthy sort of dialogue in some ways. So we will try to iron that out in a way of ensuring that once the users are there, because we can't tell them how to use, or sorry, not when to come up or not, but whoever who comes up in it, then we will have a very organized system as needed by the Cornell eBird Merlin background. It is not for background, but we are acting as an intermediate to ensure that the data from Sri Lanka is meaningful, not for Cornell, but for us. Right? That is the most important thing, right? So, for example,
So in that light, what we can do in our future FogSL trips, we'll we'll have one person doing the list, and later, anyway, we are compiling. We'll do a parallel eBird compilation as well.
Even that we started. No, we have said, you know, the day's listing at the evening, get it to eBird in way. So now we know how best to do it now. So we have to train a person who is going on the trip. So we recognize a person. Okay, Dr. Newton is going, you are the eBird recorder for the trip. So that at the end of the day, Dr. Newton will do the needful in accordance with the requirement of a standard, so that the data becomes important at the end of the day. So we'll do these things for this year. We will try to get it out, and of course with the vernacular, Sinhala and Tamil also, because we are going to have a program in Jaffna, which is something which we started many years ago in 2010 or 9 and 10. It has been going on in a different platform, but it's going to re-emerge somewhere in 2021. Then we will enhance the activities in that region. There is also a program that is to come in the eastern region. So maybe we will throw this also into that. So those are my general comments, which I would like to, based on some of the comments, chat comments that came in.
We are also starting the Out of the Bird Count. We will launch it soon. So it's a good opportunity for using promoting eBird and Merlin, and sort of try to build a case on how to use it for record keeping, etc. So I was thinking of actually having a specific meeting next week to launch Out of the Bird Count. So I think Professor Kotakama's suggestions on getting a team sort of developed to promote eBird and all, we can accommodate with that. Yeah, we'll further discuss this one.
All right. So with that, shall we wind this session? If anybody has any specific questions, we can cater here now. If not, we'll wind this up, neither. And
hello, Dr. Sampath.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Newton.
Yeah, sure. So I think if we can do some adjustment to our fog trip, the bird list, in accordance with the our eBird, it will be really helpful later when we are, you know, feeding. And also some birds. Now, for example, this famous Sompen story, that, you know, if we, change our names, if possible, in accordance with the eBird, then again, it is going to be very easy. Now, for example, even mountain hawk eagle was not listed in our list. In the eBird, you know, in our list, it is listed as mountain hawk eagle. And I had to, you know, contact so many people to find out, you know, yes, it is legs, you know. hockey.
Yeah.
So there, I mean, with the time we will able to find out few things like that. So I think time to think to rectify our things as well. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Definitely,
Thanks,
Newton,
Dr.
definitely.
That's what mentioned. Yes, I think we'll sir said that by the end of April we'll align that. That's what you mentioned, Professor Kodagama, right? Yeah, that's great. And as you mentioned earlier, I will pass the Sri Lanka endemic list to Cornell anyway, just to make sure that they'll get that right as well.
As Prof mentioned, it gives a big pride, Sri
Yeah,
Lanka.
it's true. Yeah. Yes, Dr.
Thanks.
Newton and Sampath. The background is that this was not our forte, this was somebody's forte. And everybody else was using we didn't object. But now, today, we are officially linking up with eBird and Merlin. So we must therefore recognize ourselves to being part of the big picture. So that's why I said, by April, Doctor, we will have the list that is in line, because I know BirdLife is already doing it. So there's nothing unusual for us. We are not sort of subserving ourselves to somebody else. No, we are following the BirdLife principles, and on the basis of which we will rectify our list names, vernacular names, so that the entries and the data will be meaningful, right? So by April, we will send it out to all our members and say this is the current vernacular naming of the birds in Sri Lanka, in line with the eBird and Merlin, right? Because that is BirdLife standard also. So we are not subserving ourselves or becoming, doing something just because they are saying sort of, no, because that has been our principle and we are following through that principle. We'll do that.
Yeah, talking about that principle. Yes, I mean it's great that these are all following the same principle of using birds as a tool to understand nature, serve nature, and to be with nature. So it's yeah. So we are not following some external sources. They are actually aligned with our agenda. So we are we are working with them, isn't it? I think, sir, we should wrap this up now. So we'll get about 10-minute break, and the AGM will start at 11:30. We can, so use the link for the AGM. All the members are welcome, and it is for the members. So the 2020 annual general meeting will start in 10 minutes. So use that specific link for that, not this one. Right? Okay, thank you very much, Malaka and sir, and everybody in Facebook and here. We'll meet you all again in 10 minutes. Right? Okay.